Hello, I'm Eric Walenza, founder of IoT One, and this is the Industrial IoT Spotlight. Every episode, I interview one expert about a project that is impacting businesses today. Visit us at iot1.com to learn more, or email me to start a discussion. Okay, moving on to the second part of our conversation, which is a look at smart asset management. This is a solution that I think is quite applicable to a wide range of industries, anywhere that has high value assets with a high cost of downtime. I think it's also an interesting solution because it does open up possibilities to have relatively large improvements. So talking about 10, 20, 30 plus % improvements in performance. Smart asset management, where are you looking at your market today in this space? Are you looking primarily within the power sector, within airlines? It's a fairly broad concept or applicable to a fairly broad set of customers. Where is GENPACT's focus with this use case today?
So it's across industries. As you mentioned, a few of the industries you already highlighted. Yes, aerospace, locomotives, utilities, mining, heavy industry machineries, as we call it, high-value asset manufacturers. So it has very, very wide applicability. And the solution, the interesting part of the solution is that it's highly flexible to adapt to a particular industry scenario. For example, when you are talking about aircraft engine versus say mining equipment, the way the data is captured, the type of data that is captured, the volume of data that is captured are very different. But the way we have developed this solution is highly flexible, highly customizable, and can actually be implemented across this broad segment of industry. So we are actually focusing all across this industry, not anything specific, not confining ourselves to a particular one. But we do believe what we call in GENPACT as heavy industrial machineries. That's a focused sub-vertical in our overall manufacturing and high-tech vertical. So that actually encompasses many of these that I said, and that's the target for us.
And the benefits that customers are looking for here, aside from the obvious reduced cost of maintenance for asset downtime and so forth, what are the other benefits that customers are generally looking for in this solution?
Yeah, so I will simplify articulating the impact that this solution brings to the table. And then every time we talk about a solution, we talk about the business impact. And this is our machine to P&L impact IoT framework / methodology that we put in the market. So the way we classify the user for this solution are two categories in the same industry, but two categories. One, the OEM who manufacture these assets and sell in the market. The second, the owner-operator who actually own this asset after purchasing and actually operate it. And the classic example, just to clarify. So one OEM manufacturing aircraft engines. So that is one type of category, which is the target. Now, once that engine gets fitted into an airline, and the airline operates that engine and operates that assets, that is second type of target. And it is same way across the industry base of industrial machinery. You can talk about, whether, type of one mining equipment manufacturer versus a large fleet operator for mining equipments. Objective for both are a little bit different, even though the solution at the core remains same. It just changes to the business impact modeling at the front end. For the OEM, it is about new business model, new revenue model, rather than selling the product as a product, selling it as a service, bundling the product and service together. And at the extreme end, it is selling it as, pay as you use, or pay per number of cycles or a particular period of time, and so on and so forth. So it's basically transforming the product into a product or service type of bundle. And at the same time, as some of the OEMs actually put service contracts to manage these products over a long duration of time, 20 years, 30 years, sometimes ranging to even 50 years. And services is a big area for these companies for driving profitability. Just to give you a scale, some of these companies, services account for almost like 50 to 60% of the revenue, and oftentimes contributing up to 80% of their margin of difference. So it's a big thing. So for the OEM, the second category is actually reducing the services cost over the contract duration so that the service contract margin actually improves. When it comes to the owner operator, so they own the asset and they're operating it. The trigger there is how to increase the asset efficiency, the life of the asset, so that they don't have to buy that frequently and incur more money. Also reduce the services cost, because now they own it, and if they are paying for the services and giving it to third-party contract, then the cost reduction there directly goes to their bottom line. So that's the two categories, and that's how the impact is actually linked for these two categories of users.
Okay, well noted. And then these two categories of users are both going to be your customers, or are you generally are you working with them conjointly? So serving, for example, an OEM, but also understanding and coordinating with their end users in order to help the OEM develop the right solution to bring to market. Who to an extent is paying the bill? Is it just completely case specific, or does it tend to be a situation where one of these user groups tends to be the customer and the other tends to be a stakeholder within the relationship that's helping to guide?
So in today's world, usually they don't converge. So the buyer of the solution, as I put two categories, they pay for the solution. When it is the owner-operator model, there the buyer of the solution owns everything. Obviously, it is up to them if they have to give, they want to give feedback that is generated from there to the OEM, which oftentimes would not be the case unless OEM is actually managing the service contract for this owner operator, which is typically not the case. Because then if that is the case, then OEM will actually buy the solution rather than the owner operator. So when it is an owner operator solution, typically it stays with the owner operator. When it is an OEM provided solution, it does have connect with the operator. For example, in the aircraft engine, they have to collaborate with the airlines to make the insight work, but not for 100% of the cases, but few cases where airline has to take some action based on the insight generated by the engine operator, and that trigger goes there, and they have to collaboratively work to make that work so that they get the real asset efficiency the way they have envisaged. So yes, there are some collaboration, but typically, to your question, who pays for the solution? The buyer pays for the solution, because the impact ultimately goes to those individual parties where the solution is incorporated.
And let's assume that in one case, the owner operator is the buyer of the solution. Are you seeing situations where where they are providing data back to the OEM, perhaps as a monetization model? Obviously, even though the OEM in this situation is not the buyer and potentially has no say or no access to the data that's being generated, they certainly have an interest in that data, and they would certainly like to have access and potentially would see enough value in order to actually pay for access. Are you seeing situations where the owner-operators are turning around and offering to sell or provide that data back to the OEM, potentially for improved service levels or some other structured arrangement?
So the trend is picking up, but I won't say that it is very much pronounced yet. It's actually both ways. Owner-operator needing some data from the OEMs, which can actually help them operate their fleet better. At the same time, OEM getting access to some of the data and the analytics behind that to improve their products and services in future. I would say what we see in the market, there is always this expectation going back and forth. But so far, I won't say it is really visible type of collaboration that is happening yet, because the ownership of the data is a big question. And it gets complicated when owner-operator has multiple OEM branded products in the fleet. And therefore, how do they share what is something that will not actually conflict with the other OEMs products? And similarly, OEMs giving too much of information to owner-operator probably would think that their competitive advantage could get compromised. So that level of trust, I think it's a matter of time when things become open and the value system actually takes over this concern on who owns the data and how do we actually create the value out of this and how do we actually monetize and who actually gets how much share. I believe it's evolving model and it will take its time to mature.
Good point. So not so much technical challenges, but challenges in regards to data ownership, more, I would say, more contractual or business challenges in terms of the coordination to share data effectively. Talk to me about the solution service stack. I imagine the core technology is going to be an analytics engine. Is this something that you are providing? Is this something that you have a strategic partner that's providing, or that you're sourcing from whichever vendor has the best solution for a given use case? And then what are the other technologies, the other services that are frequently involved in the full solution?
Yeah. So we are an end-to-end service integrator for this solution, which involves the conceptualization, design, selection of the stack in a particular context that goes with the client direction and blends with the technology landscape and so on and so forth, and building of the solution components, building the analytics algorithms, creating the visualization insights, and then overall managing the solution. We do also bring, over and above this, even managing the entire operations. For example, if I implement the solution for service contract margin upliftment for an OEM, we also bring our operations expertise to, after the IoT solution is implemented, completely managing and operating that solution, not just technical, but technical and business process operations, everything, and linking it to the outcome. And we actually go to the market in a very interesting model where we actually link even the commercials to the outcome that we generate for the client. Now, the components, the technical components of the solution, for this particular solution, there are several, but I'll highlight a few. So we had a core platform, and then there are a lot of solution components, homegrown solution accelerators from GENPACT, including analytics engine, and few algorithms on predictive modeling and failure forecasting. Then NLP, the natural language processing engine for interpreting data from structured and unstructured past records. Then the AI component, enterprise application integration, then responsive user interface, and standard Java, Python, Postgres, SQL, HTML5, the microservices based architecture on Cloud Foundry, and so on and so forth. So a lot of technical components. And what we do is the way we build this solution, because the solution is going to be across and potentially can go to multiple industries, multiple companies because of its wide coverage. The components are modular in nature, very easily can be replaced with something else that the client would have in mind. And it's microservices based architecture on Cloud Foundry. So very easily the component can be modified, amended, and aligned to what a specific context is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like what I'm hearing is it's highly customized to an extent. There's core components or some architectural templates, but depends, of course, greatly on the particular solution. Why don't we look at one solution that you've actually run as a test bed through the Industrial Internet Consortium? I think this is a good opportunity to look at a particular architecture. So give us a quick overview of why did GENPACT, you already are offering this solution to customers. Why did you decide to take this to the IIC and run it as a test bed?
So coming to your question on why did we take to IIC and why did we want to do a test bed? We strongly believe that the IoT world will be evolved to maturity with contribution from all ecosystem partners. And the best way it can evolve faster is sharing some of the best practices and some of the creating a base where people can experiment on and can learn as well as contribute, because things are changing and very, very dynamic. And today you put a solution and put some communication protocol and develop a solution in a certain way. And tomorrow something better is available, or a different party has come out with some other experimentation that potentially can actually add some additional benefit to the solution. So this is one of the solutions. This is not the one that we are pushing for test bed. In fact, there are several others we are channeling now. We felt obviously we were way ahead in the game, and we felt it will add value to the ecosystem and IIC members as a whole, because we believe in contributing back to the forum. We said the base, if we can expose to our IIC members, it will be a good platform for OEMs, the owner operators, as well as the IIC members, different technology companies and different service providers to experiment on this. And how it helps, it helps the community, it helps the industry, it helps IIC, it also helps us. For example, if we had one company here with whom we did the sensor and the edge device and so on and so forth, but there are 100 different companies out there who actually provide the edge device and sensors and so on and so forth. So if they experiment on my test bed and come back with something better and more fruitful, then it actually helps me in going with a solution to the market tomorrow with a better view. And the world is free. I mean, nobody's locked with anybody else. So it helps everybody. And similarly, for the existing partner who is, let's say, providing the sensor and the device and so on and so forth, they can also see what else is possible, and therefore changing the model or changing the structured device technology, depending on a particular scenario. And also imagine that we talked about different industries, different contexts. Some are moving assets, some are stationary assets. So not one type of technology will work for all. And therefore, the solution components that we had built was, even though it was serving few companies, we cannot disclose those names yet, but it has the ability to be flexible and take out one module and input another and, connect with APIs and connectors, and then you are ready to go again. So therefore, it is important not to actually bind into a particular technology, particular device, particular stack, and particular platform. And here we used one core platform, by the way, a third-party platform. But this is this was the whole intent. This was the whole intent to actually bring it something where everybody could collaborate. But our IP remains IP, so we don't need to worry about, and it doesn't harm us. It only benefits us.
No, I think that's a great point. I think the concept of crowdsourcing, I think, is gaining traction, but it's often thought of in terms of crowdsourcing or open sourcing, that is software, and enabling access to the source code to identify security concerns and so forth. But I think it's also very relevant in the architecture, the technical architecture space. So what you're doing here, to an extent, is open sourcing this, allowing other companies to play with the architecture, identify where solutions might be modified or where their technologies might fit in, and doing so, as you said, you're increasing your overall awareness and also other companies' awareness of how they can integrate with your solutions. I think it's a very useful approach for growing the overall size of the market. So appreciate that you're taking this action in conjunction with the IIC. Final thoughts on the particular use case. I'd like to talk quickly about some of the challenges that you've seen companies encounter, whether it's in the planning process, whether it's in implementation on the technical side, having the technical architecture or the IT infrastructure in order to access or utilize the data, for example, or whether it's on the operational side. If you were to point out a few of the areas where you've seen previous companies face challenges, so that listeners who might be considering the solution could also consider whether those might be potential challenges that they should plan for, what would those be? Where do you tend to see companies run into unexpected situations that could, with some foresight, be planned for?
Yeah, this is a great question. What we have experienced is that given this is a pervasive solution, again, cuts across multiple functional silos in a given context, in a given solution scope, it is extremely important for the stakeholders to come in and have a shared vision, what they are trying to achieve. That we believe and we have seen is something that companies really struggle with. And it takes a lot of time. And many times it works with a top-down approach. But when it comes to the middle management level, I think that shared vision, shared goal, well, this is what we want to achieve. And let's say my maintenance cost, I want to reduce by 30% in next 9 to 12 months. And my stakeholders, the respective stakeholders are all linked and share this common objective. I think that is very critical. Else it goes from back and forth, and then whether it's a technology approach or it's a business approach, and it sort of kills time and burns energy, and creates a lot of heartburn as well within the organization. So I think it's more about bringing everybody together and understanding that there is going to be change, and therefore we need to manage the change imperative really well. The second is, I believe it's a sort of I'm okay, and I have always done like this, and this doesn't fly in my organization. I think that we do see a lot of cases where companies come with a determined mindset that this doesn't comply to our security standards. This doesn't the data is something that we cannot expose, and this is not going to work here. There is an element of truth in that. Obviously, it comes from a lot of experience in the organization, but I think it's time for people to realize that there is always a different way of doing things, and IoT is one of those things which actually challenges the fundamentals of the past way of doing things. Therefore, it could change your business, it could change your technology landscape. You might have a different way of looking at how you used to look at security. You might have a different way of looking at how you used to implement technology solutions. So understanding and sort of buying into that mode, that experimentation and doing the experiment and jumping into it is the key, rather than trying to stay on the bank and waiting everybody will get into the water and they will float, and then I will see how I should jump. Probably will be a wrong approach because it will be too late.
Well noted. So I think that's an excellent point to end our conversation on. That number one, organizational issues are often the issues that are most difficult to detect and to address, and very, very worth putting the time to align before kicking off a project. And number two, the time to start is now, even if starting means having the conversation, having frank conversations around what the future will look like, and doesn't always mean making a large investment in a solution, but those conversations need to begin now. If you're not beginning the conversations now, you're gonna miss the game. You're gonna come late to the party, and we've seen that happen to many traditional industries throughout the internet wave of the past 20, 30 years. And during that time, we've seen, as I'm sure you know, the average lifetime of a Fortune 500 company go from 50, 60 years down today to about 15 years. So companies can't afford to wait. The technology life cycles are maturing too quickly these days. You have to address and move relatively quickly to stay on top. Sukant, thanks so much for taking the time to walk through this with us today. For me, it's been a fascinating conversation, so I trust that our listeners also have learned. You mentioned that you could share a couple emails that people could use to get in touch with you. What would those be?
Shreya Nakra, is it SHREYA.NAKRA at GENPACT.com, shreya.nakra@genpact.com. That will be the key email ID where anybody can reach out for any question, anything on IoT, and then she will be the orchestrator for all the channels and propagating that. Sure. Thank you so much, Eric. Really, really glad to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate you making time. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Industrial IoT Spotlight. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at IoT1HQ and to check out our database of case studies on IoT1.com. We help to accelerate digital transformation by advising business leaders on how to integrate IoT technologies into their operations and products. We appreciate your thoughts, suggestions, and of course your reviews. And if you have an interesting project, we would love to feature you on a future edition. Write me at eric.walenza@iot1.com.